gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, CaneSport, and good morning to you all. It is January 26th, 2024, and I would like to thank you all for joining us on Good Morning CaneSport. Today, I'm joined by Steven Wagner as we discuss the news of the day. And Steven, do we have plenty? We're going to jump right into this. Junior Day is here. Well, it starts tomorrow, actually, for the University of Miami, as they're set to host some of the top 2025 and 2026 prospects in the country. Steven, you worked all day and all night coming up with this huge list of over 85 elite prospects that are to be in Coral Gables this week. Just off the top of your head, what are some of the guys that you're really excited to speak with this weekend?
Yeah, Miami's going to get 4 5-star players down to campus. That's going to be Decorian Moore. He's the number 4 receiver in the country right now. He's currently committed to LSU. Caleb Cunningham, another 5-star receiver who's currently uncommitted, but he's from the state of Mississippi. Ole Miss and Mississippi State have really been getting after him in a really major way. And then Zayden Walker and DJ Pickett, a 5-star linebacker and a 5-star edge and a 5-star safety respectively. Although Walker will sometimes play on the edge as well. And I think Miami has a really excellent shot with both of those guys. Those guys are absolutely the big headliners, but then you're also going to get guys down like TJ Alford, top 50 overall linebacker in this year's class. Right now, Miami and Ohio State are really locked in a really intense recruiting battle for him at the moment. Noah McKyle, another top 50 linebacker from the state of California who's expected to get down. And the list goes on and on until, heck, you've even got a few Miami commits who are getting down, or heck, I shouldn't even say a few. Miami's commits are getting down. Elijah Melendez is expected to be on campus. Waden Charles, Luke Nickel, Miami's 3 2025 guys are expected to be there. And then over in 2026, Malachi Toney and Jordan Campbell are both going to be on campus. So really, this is a really massive list and one that I think Miami fans have good reason to be excited about.
Yeah, I spoke with Josh Newberg on the Inside Scoop earlier this week, and we kind of talked about this weekend. And, man, it's kind of hard not to think that this might be, one of the biggest recruiting weekends for the Hurricanes in that 2025 cycle. I remember last year's Miami Junior Day, we saw, half of the Hurricanes class on campus and, some guys that we didn't really know about on campus. So it really gives you a great indication of what guys Miami really likes and what guys Miami, has really high on their recruiting board, because there's going to be a lot of talent headed to Coral Gables this weekend. And kind of just looking over this list, some names that I really like: 4-star wide receiver Cortez Mills out of Homestead, 4-star wide receiver Rennell Brown out of Orlando Jones. We've got Nashawn Montgomery, 4-star defensive lineman Trent Wilson, 4-star defensive lineman out of Port Charlotte Myron Charles, Florida commit Jalen Wiggins, who Miami is still recruiting heavily, a big offensive lineman out of Wisconsin, Oren Streberg. Just the list goes on and on and on. So make sure to check out Steven's story on the expected list and the guys that we know will be down in Coral Gables this weekend for the Hurricanes Junior Day. But another event that is going to be happening in Miami this weekend is the 7-on-7 tournament, Battle Miami. Steven, half of these guys that are going to be at the Junior Day will be playing at Battle Miami as well. Just with the first kind of big 7-on-7 tournament of this, spring happening this weekend, what are some things you're excited for, with 7-on-7 season finally here?
Yeah, so it can be kind of hard, and I've talked to a few college coaches about this. It can be kind of hard to really get a feel for just how good a player is in 7-on-7, because the big thing that's missing is physicality. You can only be so physical in 7-on-7. It's catered to allow offenses to succeed, but still, you can get a really good idea for defensively, which players can run, which guys can cover. You get an idea for a quarterback's raw traits, their arm strength, arm accuracy, all of that stuff. But you also get an idea for the mental clock inside of the quarterback's head. But the one thing that you are missing, and I think this is something that we do see a pretty decent amount of at the high school level with 7-on-7. And I think it can kind of be exposed in college at times. Is because you're not playing with offensive and defensive lines. Well, I mean, we've seen national championships decided by offensive and defensive line play. Take Colorado, for instance, this year, a program that was absolutely loaded beyond loaded at their skill positions. Their offensive line was atrocious. Their defensive line was atrocious. That team ended up being 4-8. Miami, whenever Mario Cristobal first arrived, I mean, let's be honest, his first season, the offensive line was not very good. The defensive line was not very good. And they had some pretty decent talent at some of the skill positions, but offensive and line play, or offensive and defensive line play, really do play such a big role that I do think that can make it kind of hard to evaluate just how good some of these guys really are in 7-on-7, especially at the quarterback position. It's a heck of a lot easier to throw the ball and make good, timely decisions when you don't have a bunch of big guys running after you trying to hit you. And you're not having to get to the line on every single play and set a protection. You're not having to check in and out of different plays based on where you think blitzes are going to come from. Well, I take that back. You will in 7-on-7, but you're not going to be blitzed or pressured nearly in the way that you're going to be in actual game settings. But still, you get an idea for what the raw athleticism of some of these guys are, and you get an idea for what their ceilings might be able to be. It's definitely something, and you can put a little bit of stock in how these guys perform in 7-on-7. But at the same time, I don't believe that you can put everything into how they perform in 7-on-7.
I feel like you described kind of the whole 7-on-7 team perfectly. You know, some people love it, some people hate it, some people, are in between. Me personally, I'm a guy that loves 7-on-7 for all the extra stuff, the celebrations, the kids, making crazy catches, the highlight reels, and all that stuff. So I'm super excited to see some of the top prospects in the country down in South Florida putting on a show. So make sure to check out the site throughout the weekend, as we'll have updates with some of the top guys, some of the Miami commits that are playing in the tournament as well, just how they're doing in general. So make sure to keep your eye on that on the site this weekend. Moving on, Steven, you also did another analysis on Miami's biggest needs in this upcoming class. Without giving too much away, just kind of talk about a few areas you think Miami really needs to hit on in this 2025 cycle.
Yeah, quite frankly, whenever you're looking at this roster, there aren't a ridiculous amount of needs that Miami really, really does have to have. They've recruited most of their positions pretty well. They finally got a really good receiver class this last year. That's something that Miami hasn't had in really the last 15 years, if we're being honest. They're finally starting to recruit defensive line pretty well. I think that this last year, they obviously didn't have quite as large a focus on the offensive line as they had the previous year. But I still think they might have landed a few guys with the offensive line in this most recent class who I think are going to have potential to be really, really good down the line. I think Markel Bell is excellent, and I think Derek Plaz is going to be very, very good. But Miami has not recruited safety exceptionally well. They haven't recruited DB. They haven't recruited the DB position, in a fantastic manner. We'd probably be looking at it a little bit of a different way if Miami did end up landing Cormani McClain. But the fact of the matter is that they didn't in 2023. They haven't exactly landed a crazy amount of stars at safety and corner. They haven't landed some of these really, really, really big household names. They weren't able to flip Ellis Robinson away from Georgia last year. But we've already seen them trying to go after Naeem Alford and DJ Pickett in the 2025 class this year. And both of them are top 10 defensive back. DJ Pickett's a safety and Alford's is a cornerback. And I think Miami really needs to shore up both of those positions in this class. But then another thing that I think Miami really needs to do, they need to stack receiver classes. You need to prove that being able to land 3 top 150 4-star receivers is not just a one-off, because the fact of the matter is one of those guys probably is not going to end up being nearly as good as Miami thought they were going to be. Is there a chance that all three of them end up being really, really good and living up to all of the expectations? Yeah. But I mean, the truth is at the college level, coaches whiff so many times on recruits. And who is not to say that something happens and Nye Carr, a guy who I'm personally very, very high on, and Nye Carr just ends up really not being nearly as good as everyone thought he was going to be. Or JoJo Trader ends up having injuries that he can't overcome, or Chance Robinson says, maybe Miami isn't everything I thought it was going to be, and I want to transfer. Well, now you don't have a second class that's stacked underneath it that you can turn to with similar levels of talent. So Miami really, really does need to start stacking receiver talent, because in this day and age, you can't just have one pretty good 3-man receiver class and just say, okay, that's fine. We should probably be good for the next 3 or 4 years. No, you need to start landing this pretty consistently about every year. And so I think both of those are going to be areas that Miami really needs to hit on. But I mean, you can read the rest for yourself.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. That secondary is, some areas that I really want to see Miami honing on. We've seen in the 2023 class and the 2024 class that Mario Cristobal has built the trenches, the pretty much foundation of this program. Now he's kind of adding the accessories on the outside, making his house a little fancy, things like that. So I think the secondary is going to be a very, very big area, not area of concern, but an area that Miami really hones in on in this 2025 cycle. And I'm excited to see what guys they're able to bring in, like you mentioned, DJ Pickett, Naeem Olford, Chris Ewald Jr., a guy that recently decommitted from Michigan's on the market that Miami really, really likes. So it'd be very interesting to see what area Miami really, really focuses on this recruiting cycle. And like I mentioned, O-line was kind of the big focus in the 2023 class. You landed 2 5-stars. D-line was a focus in the 2024 class. You landed 3 5-stars. So let's see what Miami can do in that 2025 class where they really target. So moving on, we have plenty of recruiting updates as well on the site this morning. I kind of want to start off with a pretty interesting or pretty cool one that I thought. So I had the chance to interview 2026 offensive lineman Brody Smith out of Knoxville, Tennessee, who got his offer from Miami in a pretty interesting way by the help of former Cane John Faciliano. John played with Brody's father in the NFL and reached out to Coach Alex Morobo and said, hey, I have a guy that I think will fit really, really well into your program. And then Brady lands that Miami offer. So a pretty cool story about, a former Cane helping out what could potentially be a Cane. Go back in the 2026 class as well. Quarterback out of Edgewater, Michael Clayton II, reached the landed offer from Miami. He had a nice sophomore season at Edgewater, helped them finish with an 11-1 record. Let's build a strong relationship with offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson. So make sure to check out the update as well. And Steven, you spoke with 2025 wide receiver Winston Watkins Jr. out of my neck of the woods in Naples, Florida. The younger cousin of Sammy Watkins, who's having, Florida programs really, really turn up the heat on him. Miami a little bit as well. Just what was that conversation like? What are you saying?
Yeah, Winston's a guy who definitely has some interest in Miami. That's definitely a school that he's keeping on his radar, a school that he's monitoring, and a school that, quite frankly, excuse me, can't keep getting me up this early. But a guy who Miami is definitely going to continue to monitor, and a guy that Miami will have a great chance to be in the running for. I mean, really probably until it comes down to the time they needs to make a decision. However, Miami still has some work that they need to do. I think that, him and Kevin Beard definitely have a little bit of a relationship to the point where they're at least willing to, they're at least on good terms with each other, and in the sense that Winston Watkins will pick up a phone call from Kevin Beard. However, a lot of work is still needed to be done because, quite frankly, there are a lot of other schools that have recruited him much harder and much better thus far. He's, kind of burst onto the scene, and now he's starting to get a lot of substantial national attention. I believe he was committed to Colorado last year before he decided to go ahead and decommit. And whenever he decommitted from the Buffs, he continued to get that same level of really, really substantial attention. So he's someone who I do think you are going to have to continue to monitor the absolute heck out of. But if Miami is going to have a real shot here, they absolutely have to get him on campus. Like, I don't think there's any way that Miami can label themselves as, a true threat or a true major contender for Watkins until they get him on campus at least a couple of times here over the next few months. Of course, official visit season will be here before you know it. So, we'll probably have an idea closer then about, what the what a class picture is probably going to look like. But until then, I think that Watkins is a name that we're definitely going to want to watch.
And then also on the site, we have a few updates on 2025 prospects who recently got offers from the University of Miami, starting with linebacker Kamar Archie out of New Jersey Hunt School. Alex Mirabal made his way up there and put him in connection with Coach Derek Nicholson, which ended up getting an offer, as well as an update on 2025 defender Jacob Ward out of Benedict Military School in Georgia. Moving on, we also have a pretty cool, interesting video with 2026 prospect Dia Bell. I had the chance to sit down with him, have about a 10 to 15-minute conversation. We talk a little bit more about things not football and kind of what he does outside of football, his sports pedigree. His dad, Roger Bell, played in the NBA for the Phoenix Suns for a very long time. So make sure to check out that Inside the Line features with 2026 prospect Dia Bell, who I really, really like, and I think he's a good guy in that 2026 class. And to wrap up today's show, make sure to check out our 30 for 30 series where we check out the top returning players from the Hurricanes from last season. We are at number 7, Francisco Mauigoa, the linebacker transfer from Washington State. He kind of bursted out on the scene last year and was really a staple for that Hurricanes defense. So make sure to check that out. And that is all that we have for this morning's episode of Good Morning CaneSport. Stephen Wagner, I am Izubee Charles. Thank you all for watching.